Okay, Descartes' rule of signs. A couple tips I put up here that I noticed you guys are making mistakes with. Remember to always subtract 2 until you get to 0 or 1. Okay, so if you have 3, if you found out there was 3 positives, you would say 3 or 1. If you found out there was 2 positives, you would say 2 or 0. Okay, when you're finding the negatives, the easiest thing to do is just change the sign of the odd exponent and leave the signs of the even ones. That's the easiest way to do that. And when you're making the chart, all you're doing is you're finding all the different patterns that you can put, all the different ways you can put positives and negatives together, and then whatever's left is your eyes. So it seems like some of us are struggling with that a little bit. All right, so I'm going to do this one for you. So when I'm going to change, so this one's total, the total is going to be the 5 because, again, it's the leading exponent. So in the end, I know I should have a total of 5 at most answers. I could have less than that, but at 5 would be my most. All right, if I'm going to check the positives, I'm going to look for how the sign changes. So I start at the beginning, and that's a positive 2. So I went positive to negative. That's one change. I stayed negative, so that didn't change. I stayed negative. That didn't change. I stayed negative. That didn't change. I stayed negative all the way to the end. Okay. So I did not change the sign only once. I went positive to negative. So my positives are just going to be a 1, and I'm not going to subtract 2 because it's not going to change anything. There's only one change, so I'm not going to subtract anything. So there's only 1. All right, so for negatives, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change only my odd exponent. So the first one's, so that's going to be these guys. So I'm going to change this guy, and this one. That is all I'm going to change. Okay, so then that's going to make that a negative 2x5. I'm going to keep the negative 3x4. I'm going to change that to an x, positive x3. Keep the negative 2x squared. Change to a positive x, and then keep the 3 because that doesn't change. All right, now I'm going to look for how the operations changed on these. So I was negative. Okay, then I went positive, so I changed there. Then I went back to a negative. Then I went back to a positive. Then I went back to a negative. All right, so I changed. There's 4 hoops here, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 changes. Okay, so now this one I'm going to say 4, and then I'm going to subtract 2. So I'm going to say or. And that gets me down to 2, but again, I'm going to subtract another 2, and that gets me down to 0, because I want to stop when I get to 0. So for negatives, I'm going to have 4, 2, or 0 negative answers. All right, so for the chart, so now I'm going to check how these all are going to play out. Okay, so this one's a little easier because I only have one option for positives. So I'm thinking of all my options. So my only option for positives is I'm always going to have one positive answer. Okay, so the things that's going to change are my negatives. So if I can have one positive and I can have 4 negatives, okay, again, and I got that from here, there's one positive, but I can have 4 negatives. So I'm going to use that first. My total is 5. So therefore, 1 plus 4 is 5. So I'm not going to have, if that happens, I'm going to have 0 imaginary. So if I got one positive answer and then I went and found 4 negatives, I know I'm not going to have any imaginary answers. Okay, my next option, I'm always going to just have one positive no matter what. But now, if I have one positive, I also could have the option of having 2 negatives. So I'm going to put a 2 here. And now I have 1 plus 2 is 3, and I want to have a total of 5. So that means that I can still have 2 imaginary if that situation happened. So if I had 1 positive and 2 negative, the rest of my answers would be eyes. Okay, another option is still that I can have 0 negatives. I'm still going to always have 1 positive. So I can now have 0 negatives. So I'm going to put a 0 in the negative category. And again, I'm going to add, so now 1 plus 0 is 1, and I still have 5 I'm supposed to get to, so if this is the situation, then I would have 4 imaginary. So I could have 1 positive and then no negatives, then that means that the rest of the answers all have to have eyes in it. Okay, so this chart, so if I want to write out that, you would tell me that for the eyes, I could have 2 or 4 eyes. All right, so these are all, this chart is just kind of laying out all the different ways I can have answers. So I could have one positive and then 4 negatives. I could have one positive and 2 negatives. I could have one positive and 0 negatives. Okay, so if the positives were more, I would change this column would change more if I had another situation with more positives. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit. It seems like we're struggling with the chart.